The grand chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Marcus Harlow stepped onto the central podium. The massive amphitheater, carved from luminescent crystal and spanning nearly a kilometer in diameter, housed representatives from over 3,000 spacefaring civilizations. Towering holograms displayed the human's determined face to all present. Harlow stood alone, dwarfed by the majestic architecture but somehow commanding the space through sheer presence. The Council's 7 High Ministers, each representing the oldest and most powerful species in the known galaxy, gazed down from their elevated platform with expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled contempt. Humanity thanks the Council for granting this emergency session, Harlow began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. For 3 decades, Earth has honored every provision of the accession protocols. We have limited our territorial expansion, shared our technological innovations, and contributed to the collective defense of galactic borders. High Minister Vexor, the insectoid representative of the Arcturian Dominion, leaned forward. Ambassador, the Council's schedule is quite full. If this is merely another petition to accelerate your species' probationary status, it is not, Harlow interrupted, causing gasps throughout the chamber. Interrupting a High Minister was unprecedented. I come before you today with a formal declaration from the United Earth government. The chamber buzzed with murmurs as Harlow activated a small device. A holographic document materialized above the podium, emblazoned with Earth's official seal. Humanity hereby declares war. The words hung in the air as pandemonium erupted. Several representatives abandoned decorum entirely, shouting accusations and demands for clarification. Others sat frozen in shock. High Minister Kahl of the Orion Consortium slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor, restoring a semblance of order. Against whom do you declare this war, Ambassador? Surely not against the Council itself. Harlow's expression remained impassive. Not against the Council, High Minister. Against an enemy that threatens not only humanity, but every sentient species represented in this chamber. Explain yourself, demanded High Minister Lyrith, her crystalline form glinting dangerously under the chamber lights. For the past 18 months, Earth's deep space monitoring stations have detected anomalous signals originating from the Perseus Void, a region your star chart's mark as uninhabited. Harlow projected a new hologram showing complex mathematical equations and signal patterns. Our analysis confirms these are not natural phenomena. Something is coming. Something that has systematically extinguished life in at least 7 galaxies according to our historical archives. Archives, I might add, that predate your Council's formation. The chamber grew deathly quiet. We have attempted 17 times to bring this information to the Council's attention through proper diplomatic channels. Each time our evidence was dismissed as insufficient, and our concerns labeled as what was the official terminology? The paranoid fantasies of an immature species. Harlow's eyes swept across the chamber. Humanity will not stand idle while bureaucracy delays the necessary preparations for survival. So we have acted unilaterally. 3 hours ago, the combined Earth fleet departed from our solar system toward the Perseus Void. Our most advanced weapon systems, some unknown even to your intelligence networks, are now actively engaging the threat. High Minister Vexor rose to his full height. This is an outrageous violation of Council law. No member species may deploy military forces beyond their designated boundaries without authorization. Indeed, Harlow replied calmly, which is why I'm here, not to ask permission, but to offer the Council a choice: join us in this fight, or stay out of our way. As the Council erupted once more, Harlow activated his final hologram, a live feed from an Earth battleship already exchanging fire with massive, shadowy forms emerging from the void. The enemy is already here. The Council chambers descended into chaos as the implications of Harlow's announcement sank in. Some representatives demanded immediate military action against Earth for this unauthorized deployment. Others called for verification of the threat. A few, notably the representatives of the frontier worlds closest to the Perseus Void, were already contacting their governments with urgent warnings. Through it all, Harlow stood unmoved on the podium, a solitary human figure at the center of a galactic storm. High Minister Kahl finally restored order with 3 thunderous blows of his staff. This Council will recess for 1 hour to verify the ambassador's claims. Security, Escort the human delegation to the diplomatic antechamber. They are not to leave or communicate with anyone outside this facility. As guards approached, Harlow smiled slightly. Minister Call, while I respect the Council's procedures, I must inform you that I've been broadcasting this entire session to Earth. If I fail to send a confirmation signal every 15 minutes, our fleet has orders to consider diplomacy a failure and proceed accordingly. Call's eyes narrowed. You dare threaten this council? Not a threat, Harlow corrected. A precaution. Humanity has learned to be thorough in matters of survival. The High Ministers conferred briefly before Call spoke again. Very well. You may maintain your signal, but will remain under observation. This council stands in recess. As the chamber emptied, Harlow was approached by Delegate Toran, representative of the Proxima colonies, one of the few regions that had consistently supported Earth's petitions for full membership. That was either the bravest or most foolish display I've witnessed in 2 centuries of diplomatic service, Toran said, quietly. Perhaps both, Harlow admitted, his formal facade cracking slightly to reveal the tension beneath. But necessary. These claims of yours, this threat from the void, you're certain? Harlow nodded gravely. Beyond any doubt. We've lost 3 research outposts already. Whatever this entity is, it doesn't negotiate or communicate in any form we recognize. It simply consumes. Toran's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concern in his species. Then why antagonize the Council? Why not present your evidence more diplomatically? Because we tried that route for 18 months, Harlow replied, fatigue evident in his voice. Filed reports, submitted findings, requested hearings, all ignored or dismissed. Meanwhile, this thing moves closer every day. Diplomatic niceties are a luxury we can no longer afford. And your fleet? Can it truly engage this threat effectively? A shadow passed over Harlow's face. We're about to find out. But humanity has always excelled when faced with impossible odds. It's practically our specialty. The conversation ended as Council security arrived to escort Harlow to the antechamber. As he walked through the ornate corridors of the Council headquarters, he felt the weight of countless alien gazes, some curious, many hostile, a few thoughtful. Humanity had just forced the galaxy's hand, and there would be consequences regardless of whether their warnings proved accurate. In the antechamber, Harlow found Admiral Reyes waiting, having observed the proceedings remotely. The Admiral's weathered face showed concern. They're checking our claim, Harlow reported. They'll find confirmation soon enough, Reyes replied grimly. The void entity has accelerated its approach. Fleet Command reports initial engagement has begun and... He hesitated. Speak freely, Admiral. Our weapons are having minimal effect. The entity appears to adapt to each attack pattern within minutes. Captain Rodriguez reports it's like fighting smoke. It dissipates and reforms regardless of damage inflicted. Harlow absorbed this news with a slight tightening of his jaw. And Plan Omega? Preparations continue. The President has authorized final steps if necessary. Harlow nodded, then said quietly, let's hope it doesn't come to that. Before they could continue, the doors opened and a Council security officer announced, the emergency session reconvenes. Ambassador Harlow is required to return immediately. The Grand Chamber was markedly different when Harlow returned. The ceremonial atmospherics had been replaced by tactical displays. Many representatives had switched to military uniforms or combat interfaces. The air of bureaucratic complacency had vanished, replaced by grim efficiency. High Minister Kahl spoke without preamble. The Council has verified your claims, Ambassador. Our deep space monitoring stations confirm an anomalous entity emerging from the Perseus void, currently engaged with Earth vessels. Harlow nodded. Then you understand the urgency of our situation. What we understand, interjected High Minister Vexer, is that Earth concealed critical information about a galactic threat while building up military forces beyond its authorized capacity. We attempted to share this information through proper channels for 18 months, Harlow countered. As for our military capacity, survival often necessitates creative interpretations of restrictions. High Minister Lyrith's crystalline form vibrated with barely contained anger. You have violated multiple sections of the accession protocols. Under normal circumstances, such actions would result in immediate sanctions, possibly even expulsion from Council protection. However, continued Kal. These are not normal circumstances. The threat you've identified appears genuine and substantial. The Council has voted to declare a galaxy-wide state of emergency. A new hologram appeared, showing tactical deployments of Council forces throughout nearby sectors. All available defense fleets are being mobilized to The second Emergency Council session convened just 14 hours after Ambassador Harlow's shocking announcement. The chamber, previously orderly and ceremonial, now resembled a military command center. Tactical displays replaced ornamental holograms, and many representatives had traded formal attire for their species' military uniforms. Harlow returned, this time accompanied by Admiral Eleanor West, Earth's foremost military strategist and commander of humanity's Outer Defense Fleet. Her weathered face and the constellation of scars along her jawline spoke of battles fought long before humanity joined the galactic community. The Council recognizes Earth's delegation, announced High Minister Kal, his usual diplomatic veneer cracked by obvious stress. Ambassador Harlow, the Council has reviewed your preliminary data. We require comprehensive evidence of this alleged threat before considering your request for alliance. Admiral West stepped forward. Evidence is precisely why I'm here. Her voice carried the unmistakable authority of someone accustomed to life or death decisions. Computer Initiate Security Protocol Omega-9. The Chamber's systems momentarily faltered before accepting the override command, a demonstration of Earth's technological capabilities that wasn't lost on the assembled representatives. What you're about to see is classified, beyond your highest security clearance, West continued. In 2187, Earth's quantum observatories detected temporal anomalies in the Perseus void. Initially, we believed these were simply natural phenomena. Then we recovered this. A holographic projection materialized, a twisted mass of metal and organic material that defied conventional design. Parts seemed to shift and reconfigure even within the static display. This vessel, or what remains of it, was discovered near Jupiter's Trojan asteroids. Carbon dating indicates it's approximately 300,000 years old, yet its technology exceeds current Council standards by several orders of magnitude. High Minister Lyrith's crystalline form vibrated with skepticism. If such an artifact existed, our surveillance networks would have detected it. Would they? West challenged. The vessel exists in a partial phase state, present in our reality for only 3.7 seconds per hour. Your technology simply isn't designed to detect such anomalies. Before objections could mount, West continued. Inside, we found this. The hologram shifted to display an alien unlike any represented in the Council, a being with too many limbs arranged in mathematically impossible configurations. And beside it, we found this. The hologram changed again, this time showing a familiar sight that caused several representatives to rise in alarm. Yes, West confirmed. That is a Galzadian preservation pod. The occupant was dead, has been for centuries, but the pod's memory banks remained intact. Ambassador Harlow took over. The Galzadians, whom your historical records list as having transcended to a higher plane of existence 50,000 years ago, didn't transcend. They were systematically eradicated by the entities we now face. He gestured, and the hologram expanded to show star systems, hundreds of them, blinking out in sequence. This is a historical reconstruction based on the pod's data. The pattern of extinction moves methodically across space, consuming, converting, and continuing. We've identified identical patterns beginning at the edge of our galaxy. High Minister Vexer's compound eyes narrowed. If what you say is true, a substantial if, why would humanity act alone? Why not bring this evidence to us immediately? We did, Harlow replied, his tone hardening. 6 years ago, through proper channels. Your intelligence directorate classified our report as speculative fiction and recommended Earth undergo psychiatric evaluation for mass paranoid delusion. Admiral West projected a final image, the official Council rejection of Earth's warning, complete with dismissive annotations. While you were questioning our sanity, we were preparing. Humanity has reorganized our entire civilization, our economy, education, resource allocation, everything focused on preparing for this threat. The ships we launched aren't merely weapons platforms. They're arcs carrying the sum of human knowledge and genetic diversity. You built an evacuation fleet, High Minister Kal realized aloud. No, West corrected grimly. We built a resistance. Humanity isn't running, we're standing our ground. But we're not fools. If we fail, we've ensured our species' survival elsewhere. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Now, Harlow said, his voice cutting through the tension. Shall we discuss strategy? Or would the Council prefer to debate the matter while worlds begin to die? High Minister Kahl conferred briefly with the other ministers before responding. This chamber will recess for 2 hours. When we reconvene, bring your tactical assessments and all data on this entity. The Council needs time to process these revelations. As the representatives filed out, murmurs and heated discussions already breaking out among them, Admiral West turned to Harlow. They still don't fully grasp the situation, she said quietly. They will, Harlow replied, when their deep space relays go dark one by one. In the diplomatic antechamber, Harlow and West were joined by Dr. Mikhail Novak, Earth's leading xenobiologist who had studied the recovered artifacts. His face appeared on a secure communication screen, transmitting from the front lines where Earth's fleet engaged the entity. The situation is deteriorating faster than projected, Novak reported without preamble. The entity is adapting to our phase shift technologies. Initial effectiveness rating has dropped from 82% to 47% in the last 6 hours. West's expression remained stone-like, but her eyes betrayed concern. What about the resonance barriers? Holding but showing strain. The entity appears to be learning. Harlow frowned. Learning our weaknesses or learning about us? Impossible to determine, Novak admitted. Its patterns show both aggressive adaptation and something resembling curiosity. It's as if it's conducting its own experiments on our defenses. Casualties? West asked bluntly. 3 ships lost completely, 7 damaged but operational. The Phoenix Protocol has been activated 12 times. Harlow nodded grimly. Phoenix Protocol. The emergency consciousness transfer system that uploaded the minds of dying crew members to secure databanks, preserving them even as their bodies were lost. A technology humanity had kept hidden from the Council like so many others. And the package? West inquired, her voice dropping even lower. In position, Novak confirmed. Ready to deploy on your command. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Delegate Morrow of the Centauri Alliance, one of the Council's younger species, and one that had often found common ground with humanity. Ambassador Harlow. Morrow began without ceremony. My government wishes to know why Earth concealed these findings for so long. We have always supported your petitions for full membership and technological exchange. We could have helped prepare. Harlow studied the amphibious diplomat carefully. Delegate Morrow, I respect your species greatly, but ask yourself, if we had shared this information with the Centauri Alliance, what would your government have done? Brought it to the full council naturally, Morrow replied. Exactly. And then it would have disappeared into committees and subcommittees, classified and contained by the elder species who believe their experience grants them exclusive right to determine what constitutes a threat. Morrow's gill slits fluttered in agitation. You don't trust the Council. We trust the Council to act precisely as it has for 10,000 years, West interjected. Deliberately, cautiously, and far too slowly when facing an existential crisis. Harlow placed a conciliatory hand on Morrow's arm. We concealed our findings not out of distrust for species like yours, but because we knew the system would dilute urgency until it was too late. Humanity has experienced similar bureaucratic failures in our own history, with catastrophic results. Morrow seemed unconvinced, but nodded respectfully before departing. Once alone again, West turned to Harlow. We're making enemies. Better enemies than extinct, Harlow replied. Besides, if our assessment is correct, they'll soon understand we had no choice. When the Council reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted again. The initial shock had given way to grim acceptance, at least among most representatives. The tactical displays now showed real-time data from the frontline engagement between Earth's fleet and the entity, which had been officially designated Void Phenomenon Alpha. High Minister Kahl opened the session. The Council has reviewed your evidence and finds it compelling. While we disapprove of Earth's methods, we acknowledge the severity of the threat. Our combined military forces are now on full alert, and the evacuation of systems nearest the Perseus Void has begun. Harlow nodded. Thank you, Minister. However, Kahl continued, The Council requires full disclosure of all Earth military capabilities and technologies immediately. Your fleet is demonstrating systems far beyond what your species has reported possessing. Admiral West stepped forward. With respect, Minister, complete technological disclosure in the middle of an engagement would be strategically unwise. The entity has demonstrated ability to intercept and analyze communications. You suggest the Council itself might be compromised? High Minister Vexer asked incredulously. I suggest caution, West replied evenly. We don't yet understand the full capabilities of this entity. What we do know is that it assimilates and adapts to technology it encounters. The less information freely available, the more difficult we make its adaptation. The Galactic Council's war chamber hadn't been used in over 7 centuries. Dust covered the ancient tactical displays and command consoles as representatives from the Council's Military Advisory Committee convened alongside Earth's delegation. 3 days had passed since Admiral West's presentation. Initial scans had confirmed humanity's claims. Something was indeed emerging from the Perseus void, and preliminary encounters with Council scout ships had ended in disaster. Ambassador Harlow stood beside Dr. Naomi Ichikawa, Earth's leading xenobiologist and expert on the newly designated threat, the phage. High General Zovak of the Tendaran Republic, the Council's foremost military authority, manipulated the chamber's central hologram to display footage from the most recent engagement. 15 ships lost, he reported grimly. No survivors. The phage entities appear capable of adapting to our weapons within minutes of exposure. Dr. Ichikawa nodded. That matches our findings. The phage isn't a conventional species. It's a composite intelligence that operates as both a collective and as individual units. Think of it as a viral civilization. It doesn't simply conquer. It infects and transforms. She brought up her own display showing molecular structures. It rewrites matter at the quantum level, converting everything it touches into more of itself. Then why haven't your ships been converted? Demanded Representative Jorel of the Mercantile Worlds. You claim to have engaged these entities for weeks now. Admiral West, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. Because we're not fighting the way you would. She activated a small device on her wrist, and a new hologram appeared. A detailed schematic of Earth's flagship, the EDF Indomitable. Council military doctrine relies on energy shields and particle weapons, technology that's remained essentially unchanged for millennia. The phage adapts to these known parameters almost instantly. West zoomed in on sections of the schematic. Humanity took a different approach. Our ships utilize randomized weapon configurations that constantly self-modify. No 2 shots are identical in frequency, yield, or delivery method. High Minister Lyrith's crystalline form glinted skeptically. Such technology would be dangerously unstable. The energy requirements alone would be prohibitive. For conventional thinking, yes, Dr. Ichikawa agreed. But humans excel at unconventional thinking. We don't power our weapons with antimatter, reactors like Council vessels. She displayed a new schematic, showing a device that defied conventional engineering principles. This is a quantum probability engine. It doesn't generate energy so much as it borrows it from alternate realities. The Council representatives exchanged alarmed glances. That's theoretically impossible, High General Zovak stated, flatly. Ambassador Harlow smiled for the first time since arriving at the Council. Humanity has found that impossible is often just a word for not yet accomplished. Our history is filled with achievements that were once deemed impossible. Admiral West continued. The phage adapts by analyzing patterns and probabilities. Our systems deliberately violate those patterns, creating weapons and defenses that operate on principles of controlled chaos rather than predictable order. And this is why you declared war? Asked High Minister Kahl. To deploy these reality-bending weapons? No, Harlow said firmly. We declared war because that's the only statement the Council takes seriously enough to act upon immediately. Dr. Ichikawa elaborated. For 3 decades, humanity has observed how this body operates. Petitions take years. Warnings are filtered through bureaucracy. Even evidence is subject to political interpretation. But a declaration of war? That cuts through everything. You manipulated us, accused Representative Jorel. We saved you, corrected Admiral West. The phage would have reached Council core worlds within 17 days. Your standard response protocols would have initiated in 14 days. You would have had 3 days to prepare for extinction. Ambassador Harlow's expression softened slightly. Humanity doesn't want to fight alone. We need the Council, your resources, your fleets, your combined knowledge. But we needed you now, not after committees had debated the optimal response. He gestured to the tactical display showing the advancing phage. This isn't a conventional war. It's survival, and sometimes survival requires breaking rules. High Minister Vexor's compound eyes studied the humans intently. These quantum probability engines, they truly work against the phage? They do, confirmed Dr. Ichikawa. And we're prepared to share the technology with the Council, immediately, without patents or restrictions. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. There's something else you should know, Admiral West said, breaking the silence. When I said we're not fighting the way you would, I wasn't referring only to our technology. She activated a final hologram showing Earthships engaging the phage in the Perseus void. But instead of destroying the entities, the vessels appeared to be hurting them. We're not just fighting the phage, West revealed. We're communicating with it. The revelation sent a new wave of shock through the war chamber. High Minister Kahl was the first to recover. Communicating? With an entity that has destroyed entire civilizations? Dr. Ichikawa stepped forward. The phage isn't malevolent in the way we understand the concept. It doesn't hate, fear, or desire conquest. It simply exists according to its own nature. She manipulated the holographic display to show patterns of energy flowing between Earth vessels and the phage, entities. These patterns represent a rudimentary form of communication. Not language as we understand it, but energy exchanges that convey basic concepts. What concepts could possibly matter to such a being? Asked High General Zovak skeptically. Differentiation, Harlow replied. The phage doesn't recognize individuated consciousness as valid or valuable. It perceives diversity as disorder, something to be corrected through assimilation. Admiral West continued, our ships aren't just fighting a holding action. They're demonstrating through energy patterns that diverse separate entities can form complex, beautiful systems without being homogenized. You're trying to reason with it? High Minister Vexor's tone made his skepticism clear. We're trying to show it something it hasn't encountered before, Dr. Ichikawa corrected. A form of ordered complexity that requires diversity rather than uniformity. The tactical display updated, showing new movements of the phage. Instead of pressing forward as before, sections of the entity appeared to be holding position, almost as if observing. It's working, Harlow said quietly. Not completely, not quickly, but it's responding to our communications. High Minister Lirith's crystalline form vibrated with disbelief. You expect us to believe that humanity has achieved what no other species in recorded history has managed? Meaningful contact with an extinction-level threat? We don't expect you to believe it based on our word, Admiral West replied. Which is why we're inviting Council observers onto our command ships to witness the communication attempts firsthand. The chamber erupted in discussion. Such an invitation was unprecedented, allowing Council representatives direct access to Earth's most advanced military technology during active operations. When order was restored, High Minister Kahl addressed the humans directly. This council has existed for 12,000 years. In that time, we have encountered 17 extinction-level threats. Each was ultimately destroyed through combined military action. Never once has communication been established. With respect, Minister, Harlow responded. Perhaps that's because the Council has always approached such entities as enemies to be destroyed, rather than intelligences to be understood. These observers, High General Zovak interjected. What access would they have? Complete, West answered without hesitation. Full access to our communication protocols, weapon systems, and tactical decision-making. No restrictions. The High Ministers exchanged significant glances before Kahl spoke again. The Council accepts your invitation. A delegation of 9 observers, 1 from each administrative sector, will depart immediately for your command fleet. Thank you, Harlow said with a slight bow. Earth welcomes this cooperation. As the meeting adjourned and representatives began filing out, Dr. Ichikawa approached Harlow and West privately. That went better than expected, she murmured. They're still skeptical, West replied quietly, as they should be. But they're also desperate. The phage has destroyed 3 of their outpost stations now. They're beginning to understand what we've been facing. Harlow nodded. And the real communication protocols? Prepared, Ichikawa confirmed. The observers will see everything except the quantum entanglement layer. That would be difficult to explain. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Delegate Torin, who had been watching the proceedings from the back of the chamber. Ambassador Harlow, Torin began cautiously, my government wishes to know if Earth truly believes communication with this entity is possible, or if this is simply a strategy to buy time. Harlow studied the alien diplomat thoughtfully. Both, Delegate. We believe communication is possible, but we're not naive. Success is far from guaranteed, and if it fails, Admiral West answered, then we implement Plan Omega, which is, pressed Torin. A last resort, Harlow said simply, one we sincerely hope to avoid. As Torin departed, seemingly unsatisfied with this answer, Dr. Ichikawa spoke softly. The Council won't approve Plan Omega if they... The Council's strategic planning vault, buried 2 kilometers beneath the surface of Nexus Prime, represented the most secure location in known space. Here, protected by temporal locks and reality anchors, the combined leadership of humanity and the Galactic Council assembled to hear Earth's full plan. 5 days had passed since the revelation that humans weren't merely fighting the phage, they were attempting communication. Many Council representatives remained skeptical, yet the continued success of Earth's fleet against an enemy that decimated conventional forces demanded attention. Ambassador Harlow stood beside Professor Thomas Okonkwo, Earth's premier linguist and pioneer of the field humans called xenopsycholinguistics. The fundamental error in our collective approach to the phage, Professor Okonkwo began, was assuming it operates with hostility. It doesn't. The phage doesn't hate, fear, or desire conquest, concepts we project onto it from our own evolutionary experience. He activated a holographic representation of phage communication patterns, swirling, fractal structures that seem to fold in on themselves indefinitely. The phage communicates through recursive probability states. It doesn't use language as we understand it, but rather exchanges potentialities, things that might happen, could happen, or exist in quantum superposition. High Minister Kahl leaned forward. You're suggesting this entity that has destroyed entire civilizations is merely misunderstood? I'm stating that its actions, while catastrophic to us, aren't motivated by aggression, Okonkwo clarified. The phage transforms matter because, from its perspective, it's optimizing reality, converting chaotic biological systems into ordered, unified ones. Dr. Ichikawa joined the explanation. Think of it as a gardener who doesn't recognize that wildflowers are different from weeds. It's reshaping the cosmos according to its understanding of perfection. And humanity believes it can reason with this. Cosmic gardener? High Minister Vexor's tone made clear his skepticism. Admiral West stepped forward. We've already begun. Our quantum probability engines don't just power weapons, they're communication devices. Each energy discharge carries embedded informational patterns that the phage can interpret. What message are you sending? Asked High Minister Lyrith. Ambassador Harlow smiled slightly. We're teaching it to recognize beauty and diversity. He expanded the holographic display to show the engagement zone. Earthships weren't arranged in conventional battle formations, but in complex geometric patterns that shifted constantly. These formations aren't tactical, they're linguistic, explained Professor Okonkwo. We're demonstrating through our movements and energy emissions that multiple systems can coexist in harmony without homogenization. It's responding, Dr. Ichikawa added. Slowly but measurably. The vanguard entities have altered their conversion patterns when encountering our vessels. High General Zovak studied the tactical display with narrowed eyes. This is your war? A dance of ships and energy patterns hoping to... What? Teach an incomprehensible cosmic horror to respect biodiversity? Partially, admitted Admiral West. But we're not naive. Communication is our preferred approach. But we've prepared alternatives. She activated a new hologram showing massive structures under construction in Earth's outer solar system. These are reality anchors devices, capable of stabilizing local space-time against quantum manipulation. If communication fails, these will create safe zones where the phage cannot alter matter. The technology seems beyond Council understanding, observed High Minister Kahl carefully. Ambassador Harlow exchanged glances with his team before responding. There's something we haven't shared with the Council until now. Something we discovered in the Galzadian preservation pod. He hesitated, then continued. Humanity isn't the first species to encounter the phage. The Galzadians fought it, as did others before them. All failed because they approached it as an enemy to be destroyed rather than an intelligence to be engaged. And? Prompted High Minister Vexer. And the pod contained records suggesting the phage has visited Earth before, approximately 50,000 years ago. During our early development, the chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. We believe, Harlow continued once order was restored, that humanity's unusual cognitive architecture, our capacity for both logical analysis and illogical creativity, our simultaneous fear of the unknown and fascination with it, may be partially a result of early exposure to phage influence. Dr. Ichikawa elaborated. In essence, we may be uniquely suited to communicate with it, because we already carry traces of its thought patterns in our evolutionary psychology. Not enough to make us compatible with direct assimilation, but enough to grasp its fundamental nature. High Minister Lirith's crystalline form vibrated with agitation. Are you claiming humanity is part phage? No more than you are part stellar radiation because your crystalline ancestors evolved under the light of twin suns. Harlow countered smoothly. Influence isn't identity. Admiral West redirected the conversation to practical matters. Our fleet can hold the phage at the Perseus boundary for approximately 42 more days. During that time, we need the Council to implement two critical initiatives. She displayed a schematic for a device unlike anything the Council representatives had seen. First, we need quantum resonators constructed at these coordinates throughout Council space. They'll amplify our communication attempts and create a nested defense network if those attempts fail. And second? Asked High General Zovak. Second, said Ambassador Harlow, his expression grave. We need the Council to prepare its citizens for possible contact with the phage, not as an enemy to be feared, but as an entity to be understood. He looked around the chamber. Humanity declared war not because we believe violence is the answer, but because we needed the galaxy united and alert. The true battle isn't fought with weapons, but with ideas, the concept that diversity isn't disorder but strength. The Council representatives exchanged uncertain glances. And if your communication attempt fails? Asked High Minister Kahl softly. Admiral West's expression hardened. Then Plan Omega activates. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. What is Plan Omega? Demanded High Minister Vexer. Ambassador Harlow closed the holographic displays. Pray you never find out. The chamber fell silent, tension hanging heavy in the air. Finally, High Minister Kahl broke the silence. The Council will need time to consider these revelations. A recess of 6 hours is declared. As the representatives filed out, Admiral West turned to Harlow. They're afraid. As they should be, Harlow replied quietly. Fear can be a powerful motivator. Professor Okonkwo joined them, concern evident on his face. The translation matrix from the latest phage communications is troubling. The entity is growing impatient. It expected immediate understanding. Can we accelerate the communication process? Asked West. Okonkwo shook his head. Not without risks. The next phase involves direct neural interfacing. We haven't tested it beyond simulations. We may not have a choice, Dr. Ichikawa interjected, approaching with a data tablet. The phage has increased its conversion activities in Sector 7. It appears to be experimenting with different approaches to matter restructuring. Harlow studied the data grimly. It's testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. Or seeking alternative communication methods, Okonkwo suggested. Either way, time is running out, West stated flatly. If the Council delays decision much longer, we'll need to proceed unilaterally. Again? Harlow raised an eyebrow. That went so well the first time. Better to ask forgiveness than permission when extinction is the alternative, West replied without humor. Their discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Delegate Torin, who had evidently lingered behind after the recess was called. Ambassador Harlow, Torin began without preamble. My government wishes to offer full support for your quantum resonator network. We will begin construction immediately in our territories regardless of the Council's final decision. Harlow blinked in surprise. That's most welcome, Delegate. But aren't you concerned about potential sanctions for acting without council authorization? We are more concerned with survival, Toran replied simply. The Proxima colonies remember that Earth's warnings came 6 years before the council acknowledged the threat. We will not make the same mistake of bureaucratic hesitation. After Toran departed, West allowed herself a small smile. It appears we have allies after all. One government out of thousands, Harlow cautioned. But it's a start. When the council reconvened 6 hours later, the atmosphere had shifted noticeably. Where before skepticism had dominated, now a tense pragmatism prevailed. Representatives clustered in small groups, engaging in urgent discussions that fell silent as Earth's delegation returned. High Minister Kahl opened the session with uncharacteristic directness. The Council has reached a decision regarding Earth's proposals. We will authorize construction of the Quantum Resonator Network, under Joint Earth Council supervision. A wave of murmurs swept the chamber, some approving, others clearly dissenting. However, Kahl continued, regarding your second request, preparing our civilizations for potential contact, the Council remains divided. Many feel that introducing such concepts prematurely could cause unnecessary panic. Harlow stepped forward. Minister, with respect, panic is precisely what we're trying to avoid. Proper preparation will minimize. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, once a symbol of order and protocol, now buzzed with frenetic energy. 38 days had passed since humanity's declaration of war. 38 days of tense waiting as Earth's fleet maintained their strange, dance-like engagement with the phage at the edge of known space. The quantum resonators proposed by Admiral West now spanned Council territory, their construction having united previously fractious species in common purpose. Yet as the deadline approached, 4 days remaining before Earth's fleet could no longer contain the phage, anxiety permeated the chamber. Ambassador Harlow entered alone this time, his face showing signs of exhaustion but also something else, a cautious hope. Representatives of the Galactic Council, he began without preamble. I bring news from the Perseus boundary. High Minister Kahl gestured impatiently. Speak plainly, Ambassador. Has communication with the phage succeeded or failed? Harlow activated the central hologram, displaying the current situation at the engagement zone. The Council representatives leaned forward collectively, trying to interpret the chaotic patterns before them. Neither, Harlow answered, or perhaps both. The phage has responded to our communications in an unexpected way. The hologram zoomed in on one of the larger phage entities. Unlike the shifting, formless masses observed previously, this one had adopted a stable configuration, a geometry that seemed deliberately designed to be comprehensible to humanoid perception. 3 days ago, this structure appeared within the phage collective. Harzino-linguists believe it represents an attempt to establish a communication interface, a translation layer between its consciousness and ours. High Minister Lirith's crystalline form vibrated with skepticism. You believe the phage is trying to talk to us? Yes, Harlow confirmed. And yesterday it succeeded. He expanded the hologram to show a transmission log, a series of quantum fluctuations that gradually resolved into recognizable patterns. Professor Okonkwo's voice came through a communication link. What you're seeing is the first successful translation of phage communication into conceptual frameworks we can comprehend. It's not language as we understand it, more like shared experiential states, but the meaning is becoming clear. And what does it say? Asked High Minister Vexor. Ambassador Harlow took a deep breath. It says, it remembers us. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Not just humanity, Harlow clarified. All of us. The phage exists partially outside linear time. It experiences past, present, and future simultaneously. What we perceived as an invasion force is actually a form of reconnection. He gestured, and the hologram shifted to display ancient star charts. According to the phage, all sentient species in our galaxy share a common origin, not biologically but consciously. Approximately 4 billion years ago, a progenitor entity seeded this galaxy with fragments of itself, quantum consciousness packets that would eventually develop into diverse forms of sentient life. That's preposterous, objected Representative Joral. Our species evolved independently across different worlds, Biologically, yes, agreed Dr. Ichikawa, joining the communication. But the quantum structure of our consciousness, the specific way our neural systems create self-awareness, shows remarkable similarities across all sentient species. Too similar for random evolution, Ambassador Harlow continued. The phage isn't an invader. It's the progenitor returning to evaluate its creation. Its method of conversion isn't destruction but reintegration, gathering the consciousness it once scattered to learn how each fragment developed. If this is true, High Minister Kahl said slowly, why the devastation? Why consume entire civilizations? Because it doesn't understand individuality as we do, explained Professor Okonkwo through the link. To the phage, distinctiveness is a temporary state, a means of gathering diverse experiences before returning to the collective whole. High Minister Vexor's compound eyes narrowed. And humanity's great achievement is teaching this entity to respect our desire to remain separate? Not exactly, Harlow replied. We've taught it that the value of its creation lies precisely in our continued distinctiveness, that reabsorbing us destroys the very diversity it sought to create. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled representatives. The war, began High Minister Lirith. Hesitantly. Was never a war, confirmed Harlow. It was first a misunderstanding, then a negotiation, and now an opportunity. He activated a final hologram, a complex, multidimensional structure that seemed to exist at the intersection of mathematics and art. This is the phage's proposal. It will remain at the Perseus boundary, establishing what it calls a consciousness interface. Any species wishing to communicate with it may do so. Any individual who chooses to join with it may do so. But no forced conversions, no planetary assimilations. It agreed to this? Asked High Minister Kahl, disbelief evident in his voice. It did, Harlow confirmed. Because humanity showed it something it hadn't considered in 4 billion years of existence. That separation can be a form of connection. That diversity creates patterns more complex and beautiful than unity ever could. Admiral West's voice joined the communication. The phage has withdrawn its conversion engines from our galaxy. It will maintain the interface for knowledge exchange, but otherwise leave us to our own development. The chamber erupted in a mixture of relief, disbelief, and cautious celebration. When order was finally restored, High Minister Vexor addressed Harlow directly. Ambassador, there's still the matter of Earth's unauthorized military action. Your declaration of war without Council approval. Harlow nodded solemnly. Earth accepts whatever sanctions the Council deems appropriate. We acted out of necessity, knowing the political consequences. High Minister Kahl exchanged glances with his fellow ministers before speaking. The Council has deliberated on this matter extensively. Given the circumstances and the outcome, we have reached a decision. The chamber grew quiet. Earth's probationary status is hereby terminated, Kahl announced. In recognition of humanity's service to the galaxy, Earth is granted full Council membership effective immediately, with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Harlow bowed his head, momentarily overcome. Additionally, Kahl continued, the Council formally requests that Earth establish and lead a new division within our structure, the Department of Xenological Communication, to maintain contact with the phage and prepare for potential encounters with other non-standard intelligences. We accept, Harlow said simply. As the formal proceedings concluded and representatives began to disperse, High Minister Lirith approached Harlow privately. Ambassador, she said quietly, you never explained what Plan Omega entailed. Your contingency if communication failed. Harlow's expression grew solemn. It wasn't relevant in the end. Nevertheless, she insisted, the Council should know what alternative humanity had prepared. Harlow hesitated, then answered softly so only she could hear. The quantum probability engines that power, our ships don't just borrow energy from alternate realities. They can establish connections between them. Understanding dawned in Lirith's crystalline features. You would have evacuated to another reality. Not us, Harlow corrected gently. The phage. We would have created a quantum bridge and transferred the entire phage collective to an uninhabited, parallel reality, one where it could exist without threatening sentient life in our universe. The energy requirements for such an operation, Lirith, began, would have required sacrificing Earth's sun as a power source, Harlow finished. Humanity was prepared to destroy our home system to save the galaxy. Lyrith studied him in stunned silence. Let us be grateful, Harlow said with a faint smile, that humanity's talent for communication proved stronger than our capacity for sacrifice. As he departed the chamber, the representatives of 3,000 worlds watched with new understanding. The species that had declared war not to fight, but to forge peace. That had risked everything not for conquest but for connection. The war that never was had changed the galaxy forever. Later that evening, in the privacy of his diplomatic quarters, Harlow finally allowed himself to release the tension he'd maintained through weeks of crisis. His hands trembled slightly as he poured a glass of water, the fatigue of extended neural interfacing with the phage finally catching up with him. Admiral West arrived moments later, having just completed the official transfer of coordination authority for the Perseus boundary to the newly formed Department of Xenological Communication. "It's done," she reported, accepting a glass from Harlow. "The Council has ratified all treaties and arrangements. Earth is now officially responsible for maintaining the interface with the phage." "And our fleet?" Harlow asked. "Redeploying gradually," West replied. "A third will remain at the boundary as part of the Communication Corps. The rest will return to Earth for refit and, eventually, integration into the Council's Joint Defense Forces." She studied him with concern. "How are you feeling?" "The medical team said the neural connection took a significant toll." Harlow smiled faintly. "I'm fine. Different but fine. Different how?" He considered the question carefully. "Perspective mainly. Experiencing the phage's consciousness, even through the interface buffer, changes how you perceive reality. Time feels less linear. Possibilities seem more tangible." West frowned slightly. "The scientists meant you."